Oops. Nope, not. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today at Webinar Wednesday, brought to you by XenTegra. We're honored today. We have Daniel Clayton with us from Bitdefender, who is the Vice President of Security Services and Support over at Bitdefender. So it's our honor for us to have him as a panelist as he has some security discussions with us as we go today. So we're going to go ahead and kick off. Let me get in here and share my screen. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that all right. Okay, good morning, everybody. So we here from XenTegra, we want to announce that we have our upcoming Bronco giveaway. We'll post the link later in the chat as we get further along so that you'll have the link to go to that. So our 2022 giveaway has closed, but 2023 will be coming soon. So keep the link handy and be able to get in there. So with that, we have another edition of our Webinar Wednesday. And let me go ahead. Technical difficulties. So give you a little background about XenTegra if you're not aware. If you are, this is a refresher course for you. Our founder and CEO, Andy Whiteside, came from the Citrix SE position years ago and saw that there was a lack of enablement and a community building between the customers and the solutions that are being provided for that digital workspace. And that's really our sweet spot, encompassing that digital workspace and all aspects of it. So within that, we're a reseller, professional services, and providing solutions within that, and also providing managed services and even hosting services through our XenTegra Connect side of the house. So we're focused on building that community between you, our customers, and our solutions that are out there. So that's why we have these Webinar Wednesdays, so you're aware of what's coming and what's out there to enhance your environments. So again, it's focused within these complementary services and solutions that really allow you to mold a better digital workspace to boost the performance and the productivity of your end users within the solution in a secure manner, and also modernize the technologies you're providing today with disruptive solutions that are coming down the road as far as what we see as trends or the next items as far as our digital workspace is concerned. So I'm your host, John Spallone. Live in Baltimore. I have plenty of years within the digital workspace as far as end using computing, application sharing, and actual collaboration with end users, cloud solutions. I came from Citrix, where I was focused with global enablement on the cloud services that Citrix provides for both customers, our internal technical resources, sales resources, and partner community. I've been across the entire spectrum of IT, from an admin to your management side of the house to consulting, architecture. So I pretty much have seen the entire roadmap of solutions. I got my cheesiness with my dad jokes, keeping my kids up to par, making sure that they're aware of what's going on, and able to try to hone in my Zen-like experience between nerdiness and geekiness. So those of you that have been in many of these webinars, you're well aware of who I am. So with that, what I want to do is hand this over to Daniel. And Daniel, thank you for being here today with us to be able to present for Bitdefender.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Shall I, am I good to share my screen now?
Please, please.
Okay, let's see if we can make it work.
And while Daniel's doing that, if there's any questions, feel free to toss it out into chat or the Q&A, and we'll address them once we conclude the session.
So hopefully, is that working for you guys? Can you see my screen? Somebody give me a nod or a...
Yep, we're seeing it good, Daniel. Thank you.
Okay, jolly good. Perfect. Well, once again, thank you very much for having me and giving the opportunity for me to come and talk to you guys today. The goal for me over the next, 45 minutes, hour or so is to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that are going on within the security world, within the cybersecurity world today, how that's impacting what many companies have built in the past. And then talk a little bit about the way that the industry has moved to help organizations solve those problems, and most specifically to talk about the role that MDR is playing in a modern security program. And I'll talk in fairly general terms most of the time, but obviously when I do talk about specifics, I'm going to be talking about the MDR service that we built at Bitdefender in order to protect and help our customers with today's challenges. So I guess the first question really for you guys is why should you pay any attention to me? I think most security companies all over the world now have a crusty old security guy who tends to have cut his teeth in the FBI or the CIA or NSA or something like that. And I'm quite proud of the fact that that's probably me at Bitdefender. I actually spent about 30 years working within British intelligence. So I've built and ran a lot of intelligence and security operations centers for organizations like NSA and GCHQ, and been lucky enough to have done that on both sides of the Atlantic and in both hemispheres. So what does all that mean? Well, it means that I've built 8 security operations centers in total, 2 of them commercially. And I've no doubt made a bunch of mistakes along the way. So hopefully what I can do in the session today is pass on a little bit about what I've learned over the years. So hopefully you guys can learn from some of the mistakes that I've made and not make them again. And hopefully I can give you a little bit of insight into what modern security programs must be able to do, and of course specifically the role that MDR is playing. So that's the plan, the stated plan. No plan survives contact with the enemy, but we'll see how we go. So I just want to talk a little bit about Bitdefender first, really to help you guys understand why we as a company decided to get into the services business and why we decided to build an MDR organization and a service arm within the company. So a couple of general facts: we're about 1,700 employees, locally HQ'd out of Silicon Valley, but our headquarters is back in Bucharest in southern Europe. So something that people may not know about us is that we are operating one of the world's largest security delivery infrastructures, over 500 million endpoints out there in the world across about 150 different countries. And where that's really important is anything that we do in security today, anything in terms of being able to identify and deal with bad guys, requires a very a strong connection to threat intelligence. And so our 500 million endpoints gives us a very significant and unique collection capability. We're seeing attacks happening every day, all across the world, and we're able to use that to feed our machine learning, but also our researchers are able to get in there, look at that, and understand what's going on in the world today. And that's really what enables us to keep evolving our security technology product, and also to keep evolving the security operations that we've built as well. Now, something else that you probably don't know about us, we've built a customer briefing facility and an office which includes a security operations center in San Antonio, Texas. We did it for a few reasons, and I'll talk about it in a bit more detail later. But the main thing is, we as a company were built on the idea by our founder, built on the idea of bringing innovation to the space. We've been around for 20 years. That's a long time for a cyber company. And 20 years ago, our founder didn't believe that defenders were being as innovative as bad guys. And so we've really built a lot of aspects of the company and built our reputation on our ability to bring innovation to the security space. And the challenge today is that bad guys have become so innovative that technology has had to evolve over time. And it's now pretty true to say that technology on its own isn't being successful. And a lot of Bitdefender's customers struggle with the fact that they may have a good technology stack, but what they don't have are the resources to man that technology stack and the expertise to ingest the telemetry that their technology stack is generating and understand what it means and what to do with it. So we knew that if we were going to continue to bring innovation to our customers, we were going to have to find a way to make the deep security expertise bench that we've built over 20 years at Bitdefender. We needed to find a way to make that available to our customers, so our customers could benefit directly from the experience and the expertise that the team has pulled together. So the Security Operations Center was really built specifically to enable us to do that. We built it in a way that allows customers to come visit it, interact with the analysts, ask questions, see it. You know, we build it with a glass wall so that people can come in, kick the tires, and really understand what it is that we've built. So I've started to allude to it there, right? But Bitdefender is no longer just a security technology company, and you can argue that we never have been, even though it's really how we've built a reputation and how we've been known. But some of the hidden value of Bitdefender as a company is that I mentioned that we have this connection to innovation. And that's really very clear to see when you look at the fact that in a 1,700-man company, we've got more than 400 engineers who are dedicated to research and development, right? So we really have been pushing the limits for a long time with that organization. And of that 400, we have, or sorry, in addition to that 400 dedicated to research and development, we have 285 threat researchers. So, you know, some of the other companies out there talk about their threat research a lot. They go on the TV. They're constantly doing LinkedIn adverts and radio adverts and things like that. It's really kind of been the secret sauce at Bitdefender for a long time. 285 researchers, you know, studying the telemetry that we're receiving from over 500 million endpoints is a potent combination. And it's for that reason, really, that, you know, we've been doing machine learning and artificial intelligence for more than 12 years. You know, this is something that really is bread and butter and embedded in everything that we do now. In addition to that, because of the expertise that we have, we're working with law enforcement globally, both in incident response and in terms of taking down cybercrime as well. And hopefully you guys have seen, I'll maybe talk about ransomware a couple of times during the presentation, but ransomware is a blight on all of us, right? It's a real challenge for any company that has an IT presence today. And the truth is, without getting on a soapbox, we won't beat ransomware whilst we're paying ransoms. You know, it's a simple supply and demand business. And if we continue to pay the ransoms, then ransomware gangs will continue to do what they do. And it's for that reason that Bitdefender has really tried to take a leading role here. And we actually make all of our decryptors available to anybody out there, right? Not just Bitdefender customers, but anybody. And anyone who's been hit, if we can provide a decryptor that enables them to get back up and running without having to pay the ransom, then we feel that that's helping the whole community and helping the community help itself. So just another area that Bitdefender is very active, very sophisticated, and maybe a little bit below the radar from your point of view. So okay, let's start thinking about actual services, right? I think it's a fair question for you guys to ask. You know, why would I go and pay a technology provider for a service, right? Why wouldn't I go to a service provider for that? And I just want to deal with that up front so that everybody understands it. You know, it is true that we've focused our attention for you know, the bulk of our history on security technology and helping customers on the endpoint. But Bitdefender is an organization, is a company that has customers in every geographical region in the world, in every industry vertical in the world. And for that reason, we are what I would refer to as a full spectrum target, right? Meaning every bad guy out there is going to be interested in Bitdefender customers in some way. And whilst we've only recently built a customer-facing security operations center, we've been defending ourselves through our own internal security operations center and our own InfoSec team for more than a decade. So this is an area that we actually know really well. We've built something internally, and we've built experience and expertise internally that we know has worked, because it's kept us safe kept us and our customers safe for many, many years. So actually, it makes a lot of sense for us now to just start turning that capability and that expertise and that experience around, and helping our customers to benefit from it. And in many ways, that was what drove the decision for us to build the MDR service. So let's talk about what's going on, right? There's a bunch of challenges today that, right, it's become a little bit of a buzzword now that, you know, technology alone isn't working. And there's many reasons why technology alone isn't a holistic security program today. As a couple of examples, right, we all understand that that there's no such thing as a perimeter anymore, right? You know, in the old days, security was built around the idea that you could identify a perimeter, you could stack that perimeter with technology, and then you could use it to keep bad guys out. And if anybody still believes that there was a perimeter pre-COVID, I'm sure they're on board now with the idea that it wasn't. But, you know, truthfully, with BYOD and remote working and hybrid working that existed to some extent, there's been no perimeter for a long, long time. Another critical thing that happens today is that we work in a very disruptive industry. We work in a very disruptive time, right? So IT and new IT platforms are being introduced now at a rate that the world has never seen before. You know, as a CIO or a CISO in the past, if you go back 10 years, you maybe would have done 1 or 2 company level implementations or migrations, you know, a decade. You know, we would work on the same thing, and then we would try and get 1, 2, 3, 4% more efficient at it every year. That's not how it works today. Innovators are out there today creating new technologies and new technology platforms, like mobile phones, like tablets, like you know, containers and microservices and Internet of Things devices, or all of these types of things that are being designed and implemented to make our lives and the lives of our customers better and easier and more convenient. But it's also true that all of those technology platforms and all of those innovations that we're being asked to introduce into our environments at a much faster rate than we were in the past, all of those bring with them a new set of risks and vulnerabilities. And like any risk and vulnerability, they have to be identified, they have to be understood, and they have to be managed. And it's very hard today for defenders to keep up with bad guys, and they wind up, you know, using our technology and our innovations against us. And the final thing that I would point to as something that has become very important today, and is often an attack vector for us, is our people. Right, the people live their lives online now, and it's very, very easy now for bad guys to either socially engineer an individual by going to their Facebook page or their LinkedIn page or their Instagram page and learning the types of things that that person is interested in and may click on if a spear phishing email or attack is launched on them. We're very good at that, but it doesn't even have to be that sophisticated. It's actually very easy now using social media platforms to just go see what's trending. What are people talking about? You know, what are people clicking on today? And bad guys are then able to send out, you know, very, very rudimentary, but kind of blanket attacks that will just get somebody to, you know, that just give people the opportunity to click on something that they shouldn't click on. And unfortunately, quantity has a quality all of its own. So, you know, when these things are sent out there, even though they're not very sophisticated, the reality is that people will click on them. And when they do, most of the technology that you've put in your environment is no longer able to identify them, because the moment that a bad guy has access to to a network with legitimate credentials to be there, for all intents and purposes, they're now operating like a system administrator on the network. So we can't tune our tools to be alerting to somebody who has legitimate credentials to be there. We can, but if we did, what would happen is it would become very, very noisy. There'd be alerting every time somebody was trying to administer the network. The security operations team would be chasing its tail, trying to run down all these false positives, and sooner or later you wind up getting popped, right? So that people element has become a real challenge for us. So if you think about those things, right? If you think about the fact that that there are many more opportunities today out there for bad guys to use technology to attack us, and then you also take into account that that it's very easy, or it is certainly much easier, and bad guys have become very efficient at stealing our credentials through social engineering and phishing emails and the like, and this type of thing, then the inevitable conclusion there is that attacks are going to happen. Bad guys are going to find our way onto the network. And if we know that bad guys are going to find their way onto the network, and we know that we can't rely on a purely technology-driven solution, then the inevitable conclusion is that we have to start thinking about people, process, and technology, and the way that they're pulled together as an operation in order to identify malicious activity when it's going on and then deal with it. But the big challenge is these people are very hard to find, very expensive to recruit, and difficult to retain. So the vast majority of organizations and companies out there that are in desperately need of, some sort of 24/7 eyes on glass capability, they just don't have the resources to be able to do it. And even if they had the resources, the likelihood is that they can't find the people to do it. And this has really driven the need for services in the organization, in the industry. This is why managed detection and response, which is essentially a 24/7 security operation that will monitor your environment, but also take action when something happens there. That's why MDR is the fastest growing branch of the cybersecurity industry today, because companies have now come to realize that the one thing that they can't afford to not spend money on is the safety net that will keep the company off of the 6 o'clock news, if and when, more likely when, they are compromised in some way. So that's kind of why things are failing at the moment. There's a bunch of information there. Each one of them is the type of thing that we could have done a separate webinar all on our own but all on its own. But the important thing to understand is that it's changed. Security's changed, right? We don't pile a perimeter anymore. Today, what we have to be doing is assuming that bad guys are going to find access to the network, assume that's going to happen, and then go look for them, right? And we'll talk about ways in which we can do that a little bit later in the presentation. To kind of underline and help people understand maybe the way to think about it, right? In my previous role before I was at Bitdefender, I had built a hosting company's internal security program, as well as their customer-facing stuff. So I've very much been on that side of the fence, right, where I'm dealing with the fact that it's my head on the chopping block if the company becomes popped, right? And so there were two questions that used to keep me up at night when I was in that position. And I think this is a really good way to focus your security team on the priorities that they need to bear in mind when they're putting together their program, when they're asking for budget, and when they're deciding how they're going to spend that budget. The first question is, if you knew you were being attacked, would you know that you were being attacked? Right? And so what does that mean? But do you have the visibility across your network? Right? Do you have visibility in all elements of your network that if there is something going on that network, you're likely to be able to see it? Now that requires you to be able to identify something anomalous, and identifying something anomalous requires that you have a good understanding of what normal looks like. So even if you have the telemetry, even if you've deployed the technology across your network and you do have visibility, do you have the eyes on glass? Do you have people looking at the telemetry, developing a baseline that understands what normal looks like in your environment? So if something anomalous happens, you're in a situation where you're able to deal with it. And it's really a critical question, because if you don't know when you're being attacked, then really everything that you've put in place is moot, right? It's obsolete if you don't understand that you're being attacked. So that leads then to the second question. If I knew I was being attacked, would I be able to deal with it? And this question is what's driven the evolution from the old MSSP model to the MDR model. The older MSSP model was very much a monitor and notify service, right? It was really organizations would ingest whatever you had put into your environment, and they would, do a pretty good job of monitoring those alerts, doing some alert and triage and maybe some investigation. But when they found something that was going on, the next step was that they would send you an email or a notification via a portal to say, hey, we saw this is bad, you should do something about this. And it just doesn't work. If organizations aren't in a position where they know what that attack means, they know what that means in terms of business impacts to their business, and they have in place the process, the technology, and the automation to be able to do something about that attack when it happens, then you're just a spectator. Right? There's a great commercial in the US. Much easier to do this when I'm looking at people instead of a screen, but there's a great commercial in the US where there's a bank being robbed. And there's a couple laying on the floor, and they look up at a security guard and say, hey, aren't you going to do something? And he says, no, I'm just a security monitor, right? And that's exactly where we were 3-4 years ago. And MDR is the way, managed detection and response, is the way that the industry has solved that problem for customers that find it difficult, for companies who find it difficult to identify the resources and the experience and the expertise that they need to be able to defend the enterprise. Okay, good. So that kind of takes us through what the challenges are today, and why things have changed, and a little bit about what's changed, and also kind of brings us up to date with the way that the industry has evolved into MDR in order to protect companies, your customers and mine, that need that monitoring capability, that need to be able to do that. So let me talk a little bit about MDR at Bitdefender and the way that we approach building what we built, and then I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for customers. So me and my team were in a very privileged situation, because in our previous role, around 2016, we had built a what now is known as an MDR service. We didn't call it that then because MDR wasn't a thing, but we had built one already. So when Bitdefender approached me and asked me to come and build a services arm for them, I was able to bring my team with me to Bitdefender, and we were able to sit down with a blank sheet of paper and say, okay, what did we learn? And I'm pretty confident that we're the only security operations team out there that's had the opportunity to do that, because MDR is so new that everyone is still building their first one. But we were actually in a position to say, we've done this before. What worked? What didn't work? What were our challenges? How do we build solving those problems from the very beginning? And there were 3 things that we really weren't prepared to compromise on, that we really believed were critical if we were going to effectively defend our customers. So the first thing is context. You can't defend a company if you don't understand the context around the thing that you're defending. And so that context comes in 3 layers. 3 things. If I was building a SOC to defend a particular company, these are the things that I would be very specifically concerned about when I started building the operation. The first one is context about the customer. Context about them as a business. Who are they? Where are they? What are they trying to achieve? Because all of these things become very important when you start thinking about who's going to attack them. What industry vertical are they in? What geographical region are they in? What threat actors are active in that industry vertical? Who targets that particular industry? How do they target them? What tactics, techniques, and procedures do they use? And if you understand those things, then you can start thinking seriously in an informed way about, what do I need to build to defend myself against that particular thing? The same is true of the threat landscape, right? You need to understand what's going on out there in the wild today. How are bad actors operating? What technologies are they using? What tools are they using? And then critically, how can I go look for it? What will it look like? what would it look like if that attack was carried out against me, right? And if you can understand that, then you can identify the footsteps, the footprints in the snow, the key artifacts that that type of attack would leave behind, and you can go look for it. And then the final thing is context about that particular customer's IT environment. What tools are they running? What technologies are they running? If you know that, and you know how systems interact with other systems, and you know what users interact with those systems, if you understand what the environment looks like, then you can understand, number one, how bad guys might exploit the tools and technologies that are effective in that environment. But also, very critically as well, if you can understand exactly how that environment operates and what it looks like, then you can start to think seriously about identifying anything which is anomalous. And I gave the example a while ago about when a bad actor is able to steal credentials, they essentially look like a system administrator on the network. And that's true, right? If they have credentials, they can access tools and they can operate in a way that the technology can't see them. But they don't know how that user acted. They don't know what tools that the user that they stole their credentials from normally integrates with, what times they do it. So we have a real understanding. If we have context around the environment and the way that the environment works, we have a real good chance of being able to identify that someone anomalous is using a credential. And it makes us very effective, both against phishing attacks and sophisticated attacks, but also things like insider attacks as well. The moment somebody starts operating differently to the way they normally do, a modern security operation can see it. And they can see it because of the context and the focus on context. So context on the business, context on the threat landscape, context on the IT environment. If you ever speak to an MDR organization or a services organization and they're not asking you those questions, they can't be defending you. They can't be. Those are things that you can't compromise on as a defender. Those are things you have to understand if you're going to defend an organization. The second thing that we knew we wouldn't be able to compromise on is expertise. The reason that people are able to see things that technologies can't is because when you combine experience and expertise together, what you get is intuition. So if we understand what's in the environment and we understand how bad guys operate and how bad guys target particular technology platforms, that puts us in a situation where we can make educated guesses about what the attacker will do. How will the attacker attack us? What technology platform will they target? What are they doing? What's their intent? What will they do next? And this is when analysts really kind of earn their money, because they understand bad guys. They know how they operate. They can say, okay, if I'm seeing this here, this must have happened previously. Let me check that. If I know that, I know this is going to happen next. Let me go deal with it. Right? And then you're able to go and do the types of things that you can do to respond, whether it's blocking an IP address, whether it's removing a device from the network, whatever it is. But we know that we need experienced analysts that have the experience and the expertise to look at something that might be bad, might not be bad, but might be bad, and go and dig deeper into it. And that's really where technologies struggle a little bit. You know, technologies are, it is or it isn't. You can do some clever stuff with algorithms where you look for multiple indicators and that raises the threat profile. But a experienced analyst can look at a process map that's been brought up, a process map of the security tools running in the environment, something a system administrator will do regularly, and they'll look at that and say, I've seen that used against someone. I've seen bad guys do that. Let me go dig deeper. Let me go find out if this is real or not. So we knew we needed that. So it was really about then building a team with the right level of expertise. The truth is, it's very hard to find today. Traditionally, security analysts were post-event analysis people, right? They looked at something that had happened, retrospectively figured out how it happened, and then made recommendations to stop it happening in the future. And the vast majority of people that I interview, that's what their experience is. That's not what we need in an MDR org. We need someone that knows how bad guys operate, what they've done before and what they're likely to do next. And then we need them to make real-time decisions to defend customers. And that's very hard to do. So we were able to actually, with our networks into the US Air Force and into NSA, we were able to go and hire people who not only have been doing this at the national level for a long time, but really in many ways are doing it against exactly the same bad actors. So, you know, when they're ready to take their uniform off and put a Bitdefender t-shirt on, we're very happy to have them, and we'll use them to deliver our service. The final thing was, we had to do all of this at scale. If we're not going to compromise on those first two things, then we have to build the automation and the scalability into the operation to make sure that we're able to treat individual customers as targets, and we're able to look at every single customer through the lens of a bad guy. And that's really what makes us very effective. So we did some really smart things around the way that we were using SOAR and the way that we created the knowledge base and a single source of truth, something that maybe we'll have a chance to go into on another day. So here's what the service looks like. The component parts of it along the top, the component parts of any MDR operation, but specifically ours as well. And underneath the line are the technology platforms that come with it. Important to understand that, because if we have those technology platforms and we're providing them, it means that you don't need to go out and buy them, or your customers don't need to go out and buy them. So, you know, we use, as an example, we use Devo for our analytics platform for our SIM. There's no reason for customers to pay money for the telemetry from the Bitdefender tooling to go into their own SIM when we're already ingesting that cost, when we're already providing that service to them. So threat hunting is kind of the model, is really the bread and butter of the operation. Proactive analysis is how I think about it. Threat hunting is essentially the assumption that you've already been attacked, and the resolve to go understand those attacks and go look for them. 24/7 monitoring, very important, eyes on glass, 24/7 consistent decision making and incident response capability. And then threat intel. Threat intel is the way that we provide context about the threat landscape to our analysts and to our customers as well. Just to run through the technologies, we partner with Recorded Future for some work that we do in the wild and on the dark web. We use Swimlane as our automation platform, Devo for analytics, and of course the whole thing is built on Gravity Zone Ultra, which is the most effective endpoint protection tool out there. And as you know, we win those awards every year. Something I just want to focus on really quickly. We built our team differently to everybody else. Everybody else, what you hear about today is the squad model. You know, they have lots of siloed teams, a detection team, an investigation team, a response team, a hunting team, and then, you know, different people on different days are all coming together in order to provide a squad that protects a customer. We didn't want to build it that way. There's too many silos. There's too many possibilities operationally for things to go wrong. So we built a single organization with every element of the operation working for one person, with a single set of goals and objectives, working from a single source of truth in terms of our knowledge base. So everything we learn about the operation goes back, and everything that we learn about a customer goes immediately back into our knowledge base, and then in this continuous improvement cycle is constantly enhancing our understanding of what normal looks like, and that's what makes us very effective. And we've also built the operation to mirror what we prioritize. So I talked a little while ago about that we weren't prepared to compromise on context about the threat landscape provided by our cyber intelligence fusion cell, which is a bunch of ex-NSA analysts that I brought with me from NSA, who have been doing this for a very long time, understand the landscape really, really well, and they threat model every individual customer. We also have security account managers who are designated to each customer. That's really important. It's really important for customers to have a single throat to choke and a way of interacting with Bitdefender as a company without having to, deal with any of the internal stuff. But critically for me, they provide the context about the business. What are they trying to achieve? Where are they opening new offices? Are they implementing anything new? All of these things are critical to understand if you're going to defend a customer. So again, context about the business. And then finally, our active monitoring and response team. It is the same team that does signature management and generation, that does threat hunting, that does IR. And that makes them really good at what they do. Because, you know, if you're developing signatures one day and the following day you're doing triage and investigation, you don't want to be building bad signatures and noisy signatures. So doing it this way really drives the expertise levels of our team to the highest levels and ensures that the operation is efficient as it can be. And then sitting behind that, we have an operations team that is there to make sure the equipment is working all the time. I don't want to have to rely on another team for a ticket if something goes down, one of our tools goes down in the middle of the night. So we built a team that is always there and can do it. And then we also use an operational excellence team to put everything through an automation lens before we even implement it. Right? So we are increasingly scalable, increasingly more efficient, and increasingly more effective at everything we do. For those of you that don't know, OE is an organization that's is a discipline, that is very focused on continuous improvement and process reviews, that type of thing. So here's what the operation looks like: prevent, detect, respond, and report. From a prevent point of view, obviously you guys know about Ultra, understand how effective our tool is on the endpoint. But in addition to that, you know, in many ways, the goal of security today is to interdict an attacker as far to the left of the attack lifecycle as you can. The earlier you can find them, the more capable you are of dealing with an attack before it becomes expensive, before an attack or an infection can take root in the environment, establish persistence, and then become much more expensive to deal with. So we actually extend that beyond the customer's environment. We partner with Recorded Future to monitor both the internet and the dark web. So we're looking for credential dumps, for stolen credentials that might have been dumped on the bad web. We're looking for evidence of typo squatting and this type of thing on the internet. Anything that we see that we think a bad guy may be able to take advantage of, we'll flag to the customer and help them get that taken down. And in that way, we can often prevent an attack before it even starts, right? Before an attacker has even gone out there and tried to establish a point of entry to the network. We've removed those credentials and prevented the opportunity for them to do that before it's even happened. From a detection point of view, it's not just as straightforward as what we get from Gravity Ultra, Gravity Zone Ultra, which is very effective. What we also do for every customer is we build a baseline, a data-driven baseline within our security analytics tool, and then we set alerting based on that. So any movement away from a company's accepted baseline is going to trigger something for the analyst to go and have a deep look at and understand exactly what's going on. And then we review those baselines every 2 weeks. And then also within the environment, proactive hunting. So this, this process of assuming compromise and then going and looking for it, which I've already talked about a little bit as well. So detection really is in many ways the bread and butter and what drives the operation. And we combine technology capability and then also the experience of the analysts as well to make us very effective at that. We use a process called pre-approved actions for response. So our customers are able to tell us, for every device in the network, you're allowed to do these things. But if you want to do these things, you need to phone me up, get me out of bed, send me a notification, whatever it may be. And that's really important, because you can't prevent attacks from happening, but you can prevent business impact. So if you understand that that an attack is going on, but is still in the reconnaissance phase, then you can deal with that attack before it develops into something that's going to impact the business. And that requires us to be able to identify that attack and take action as fast as possible. So if you pre-approve us to change passwords, review quarantine files, quarantine folders, separate a device from the network, whatever those, block an IP address, whatever those different response actions that we can take are, if you pre-approve us, we can take action for customers much faster, and we can be more effective at protecting them. Now, of course, there may be devices and servers that are business critical that companies don't want taken down. That's fine. That's very typical. We see that a lot. And it's really just a risk management proposition, a risk management conversation that we have to make sure that that everything is understood. And then finally, we're providing real-time reporting as well as monthly strategic reporting and flash reports and after-action reports when events happen. So a lot of emphasis from Bitdefender's MDR team to provide customers with as much information as possible about what's being done in their environment and what we're doing, what hunts are we running, what are we finding, all of those types of things. I'm getting a bit close to time, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker. Just a couple more slides. I don't think we need to go too much into this. I did mention previously that threat hunting was a critical part of our operation. It's how we spend most of our time. And this slide just gives you a little bit of insight into how seriously we do that and the types of things that are likely to come out of a hunt. So there's all sorts of things that can trigger hunts. This is basically a hypothesis about what might we see in the environment if we were attacked in a certain way, or if we are seeing something that we think is anomalous in the environment, what might cause that? And then we'll go and prove or disprove that hypothesis. Critical, I think, one of the things that comes from hunting, it's not just about finding bad guys on the network. It's also about identifying vulnerabilities and issues in the network. And we spend a lot of time just providing our customers with recommendations. Hey, we see this tool being used. We see that tool used by bad guys as well. We recommend that you don't allow it to be used in your environment. Or we see a tool configured in a particular way. We would recommend that you make these changes. So there's a constant backwards and forwards between us and the customer with the goal of making that environment harder over time, making that customer more secure over time, both because of what we're doing for them, but also because of what they're doing for themselves. And so what does that wind up looking like? Here's what it looks like from a customer's perspective. If you are an ultra customer, and this is an average size customer with 30 days worth of telemetry. If you're an EDR customer, our technology is going to surface about 4,000 alerts to you. It obviously changes for customers, but you get the idea. About 4,000 alerts. Those alerts need to be triaged. They need to be run down. They need to be understood. They need to be actioned. We then apply the work that we do within the MDR team, and what comes out the other end of that are 47 active cases. And again, these are real numbers for a real customer. So 47 specific cases, and what that results in is 21 cases that we notify to the customer. So that will mean, for example, an example of the type of thing we would notify a customer. Hey, we saw this business process being used at this time of day, which is not normal for your environment. Is that something that we need to be concerned about, or is there a business reason for it? And in this case, we were told that it was somebody who was on a business trip and was accessing the environment in a different time zone and from a different geographical location. So these are the types of things that customers are dealing with from us. So it really, the EDR technology today and the visibility that we're able to put in networks gives us everything that we need to be able to identify anomalous activity and protect customers. But what it doesn't do is provide the security analytics and the people-driven actions, investigations, hunting, response actions. It doesn't solve for that problem. And MDR is a service that really provides that 24/7 eyes on glass, that safety net that if you are attacked, if somebody does steal one of your employees' credentials, if they do find their way onto the network, you have eyes who are looking at that network, who have what they need to be able to identify if something's happening that it shouldn't. And not only that, but today also have the ability to take actions on your behalf, reach into your environment, and then take the actions to protect the business and keep you and your customers off of the 6 o'clock news. So that's it from me. Hopefully that gives you a decent understanding of what MDR is and what it solves for, and a little bit about how Bitdefender actually delivers the service and solves for those issues as well. So I don't know, do we have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate number one, the presentation, a lot of good info. Fatin has a question from your experience. What would you advise in terms of protection against any Russian threats to security?
Yeah, look, I think that the important thing to understand at the moment is that there will be an uptick in Russian attacks. So we're going to see more Russian attacks. From a defensive point of view, and from customers' point of view, I don't think you need to worry too much about the fact that it's Russians at the moment, right? Generally speaking, the things that undo companies are not really focused on how good the bad guys are, how sophisticated the Russians are, how much resources and information and intelligence they have. But it's more likely that people are going to be hit because of how bad the good guys are, if that makes sense. So I would really try to focus as a start point. Focus on hygiene and the simple things that we know work: multi-factor authentication. Make sure that your devices are patched and up to date, and all of those things. If you do that, you give yourself a fighting chance. Often what you have to be is better than the next guy. Right? If you've done your hygiene well and you're patched and you're up to date and you've got the right tools or the right services deployed, then oftentimes a bad guy will look at the environment and decide that it isn't worth the effort and the money that they'll need to spend to compromise you. They're better off going and finding someone that hasn't got their hygiene together. So I could certainly pull together a very Russian specific list of TTPs and the capabilities to deal with those tactics, techniques, and procedures. But it's what the Russians do is so sweeping. They have such a broad capability that I wouldn't get too focused on the Russian aspects of it. Besides the fact that right now is a time to be vigilant. Right now is a time to make sure that you're up to date, to make sure that you have decent processes in place to ensure that your credentials are being protected, and also that your workforce understands the risks of social media and phishing and those types of things.
And Daniel, really, it wouldn't be something that would be specifically quote unquote state sponsored, because there's so many bad actors across the globe, really, that are coming at us from every angle.
Totally, and you make me nostalgic for the good old days, right? In the good old days, a lot of us out there didn't worry about, what the Russian intelligence services were doing. We weren't big enough that they would pay any attention to us. But a couple of things that happened. One is that bad actors and state APTs, advanced persistent threat actors, have dumped their tools there and overviews of their TTPs on the dark web. So those tools and those tactics are now available to a much broader range of people, not just the state actor that developed them, but a lot of much less sophisticated actors are using these APT type techniques to attack companies now. And also there's a thing called APT as a service, where commercial hackers can pay a cyber crime gang to carry out an APT style attack on a much smaller customer, a much smaller target. And of course, we've all seen over the last 12 months the way that the world is interconnected and the supply chain. So we're really not in a position anymore to say to ourselves, no, the Russians wouldn't care about me.
And then, Daniel, I did have a question. You'd mentioned at the beginning about decryptors as far as like ransomware is concerned, not only for your customers, but for the market as a whole. Is that partly because of how intermeshed everything is today, where somebody may be a target, but ultimately it affects other customers just because of how services work today from a cloud-based solution and interconnection dependencies, SaaS, all that kind of neat tie-ins across the board?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, right? I think that the first thing is that bad guys have become very good at exploiting the interconnectivity of business today. And they've been able to devise ransomware and malware technologies that essentially propagate themselves, from company to company if there's interconnectivity between them. And so that was something that became very bad, very impactful over the last 12 to 18 months. So we're concerned about that. But in many ways, it's even bigger than that. Ransomware is evolving very, very quickly. The size of the ransoms that are being demanded are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's really putting more and more organizations at threat. And we as a company don't believe that the community, the cybersecurity industry, the cybersecurity community, can be successful against ransomware until we help organizations stop paying ransoms and cut off that supply and demand for the cyber gangs. So anything that we can do to enable a customer to not pay a ransom, we think comes back to the community and really helps us defeat what has become a very effective technique.
Great, thank you, Daniel. And it looks like that's all of our questions for right now. So if we can, I want to take back over here. So if you could stop sharing. Oh, wait, we had one more. Yes, Fatina had asked, are you against paying ransom? I wholeheartedly agree that we shouldn't, but I know you've mentioned that several times as well.
Yeah, so it's a business decision, right? I understand the questions that companies ask themselves, right? It's a business decision. Am I going to lose more money if I get up and running, or by paying the ransom, or am I not? I think I'm against paying ransoms. You have to be, because it won't go away unless we do. But what's also important to understand is that it's often a false economy. What we've started to see now is that when you pay a ransom, you highlight yourself within the bad guys community, the bad actor community, as someone who will pay a ransom. And they know that you will pay it, and they know that you probably have the cyber insurance that's covering it. So it just makes you a target. And we're starting to see multiple occasions of double ransoms where people pay the ransom and then get hit again, either by the same or another group. So it isn't just as straightforward as, what's the cheaper option? Is it to cash in my cyber insurance, or is it to pay the ransom? You really do run the risk of being attacked again if you pay the ransom, and it is something that companies are having to think about now.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. And then I just want to mention real quickly again, the Bronco giveaway 2022 is closed, but if you go to the link, you'll be ready for 2023. There is another raffle coming up very quickly here. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Claire to do our raffle giveaways for today's presentation, Webinar Wednesday.
Hello, this is Kathy. I'm going to put all of our names from the webinar today into this name picker, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see. Let's see, I have too many screens to share here. Okay, there we go. Okie dokie. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, we got you. If you want to go ahead and maximize that.
From the attendees, and we're going to be picking five Amazon gift cards. So here we go. Okay, so we've got some 5 winners: Scott, Marcus, John, Raj, and let me move this out of the way, Michael. So congratulations.
Congratulations, everybody. You're a winner of our raffle today. Again, I want to thank Bitdefender and Daniel for taking the time to be here with us today and present on MDR and Bitdefender and how they help in overall security addressing within our industry today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out with us at XenTegra. We'll be able to work with you and work with our partners at Bitdefender to be able to get you where you need to be as far as security threats are concerned in today's industry as we know it. And again, I want to thank everybody for being here for Webinar Wednesday. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week with another edition of Webinar Wednesday. Everybody have a great day.